Hey, all right, we're live.
Cool.
Hey, hey, folks. So yeah, this is like the second, right, Louis?
I
Second,
guess so.
second
Although I
cast if
wasn't
you
around for
count
the
the
first
first
one.
one. Um, so yeah, I'm Macdong from 3WG, and joining me is our team captain. How about a little, a little self intro?
So I'm Lemon Skate.
So
I
yeah,
don't know,
this is
man. I
like the
just work here.
second, right, Louis?
I
Second,
guess so.
second
Although I
cast
wasn't
if you
around for
count
the
the
first
first. Oops, sorry, I had to mute myself. All right, so first things first. Thanks to anybody who's signing in. I know I didn't promote it. Anyone who's watching. Um, so yeah, what are we talking about today? What are we talking about today? Preparing
We're talking about
for.
limited stuff.
Yes, we're talking about limited stuff, and the reason we're talking about that is we are helping people prepare for the 3WG limited tournament first leg, which is happening on May 3rd, 2014, at 10 in the morning. So I'll just kind of leave this banner here for a while, so people can
Hmm.
take a look. But when we post this up into YouTube, I'll put the link in the description. All right, so let's I guess let's just jump straight into it.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, when you're preparing for a tournament, what's your normal practice? I mean, how do you go about it?
Well, I guess the most common rule of thumb here is that you wanna try to practice against as many of the most common archetypes as there are out there. At least the ones that you and your friends or your team, if you have one,
Yeah,
can put together. And the nice thing about limited is, as the name implies, there are slightly fewer archetypes that are workable. So if you wanted to build a whole bunch of different decks that you needed to practice against, I think there would be fewer decks that you'd have to make if you were if you were playing in a limited tournament. So that's the good news.
okay,
The bad news is that they kind of all, I don't know, I guess it kind of depends on what we're going to be going through today, Palano, but like the
yeah,
way that limited decks play, it's a little different from the version that you would probably see on the ladder, because on the ladder you can play any card. You don't
yeah,
have to just restrict yourself to basic, common, and rare.
that's right.
So it's not exactly, it might not be as intuitive if you suddenly had to play a deck that just couldn't use any epics or legendaries, I think.
Right. I mean, so you kind of hit on a bit of a point there where, like, the main difference between ladder and the other open tournaments is you're not allowed to use the really powerful cards, or
Right.
or actually, even if you don't, whether or not they're powerful or not is kind of beside the point. It's just that there's a whole section of the cards that are completely missing, and there are certain
Right.
interactions that are missing. So would it be fair to say that um, like if you compared a limited deck versus say an open deck, that is it fair to say that the range of limited decks will be more what's the word? It'll be more predictable because there's less, or
Yeah.
does it make it even less
Uh,
predictable because then not everyone's
okay.
playing the same thing and who knows what will
Yeah.
pull out.
Yeah, I think that we're kind of in a weird state. I mean, this couple of weeks in particular has been a really strange time for the regular Hearthstone meta because of things like the resurgence of the hunter decks. So, in a way, if you play in an open tournament right now, you can almost guarantee that about half of the field is going to be using hunter. Um,
Yeah,
Whereas in a limited tournament, it's not quite as obvious. Uh, What's really scary though to me, I mean, and neither you or I can actually join the tournament on Saturday because we're running it.
well, duh.
Um, like I'd be super afraid of all of the hunters that would be there, because the amazing thing about the current hunter deck that's making such a huge meta shift right now is that it's mostly a limited deck. No, you don't
Yeah,
have to play it with legendaries. I think there are versions of it that use Leroy, but that's an optional card. You
yeah,
you can actually just swap something else in for that. And
Okay.
Leroy isn't even the card that will win you the game. I mean, it's really Unleash the Hounds, and that's, you can put that
Yeah,
in
it's
any deck.
it's it's a card advantage that eventually draws.
Right.
So, all right. So I guess since you already we kind of alluded to the hunter already. So I mean, just to be fair to everybody else, even though we are running this thing, I haven't really taken a look at what you guys have registered. So I have no idea what you guys are playing. Um,
We should have at least checked what the classes were, though, no? Para just to
yeah,
get
but
like I don't
I
know,
sup
is that
I
a bad
sup
idea?
I suppose I could check, but nah. I don't think I should check. I mean, let's do this cast completely blind with
Okay, that's
just
fine.
our
That's
best
fair
guess of
enough.
what the meta will be. Because I don't really want guys seeing this video and then knowing that the meta for 3WG is mostly
Yeah,
priests.
yeah.
You know,
Wow. Okay. Well,
wow.
good luck with that one. But okay.
Woohoo! All right, so let's talk about the gauntlet. I think I guess we're both in general agreement that when it comes to I guess what the common decks we can expect, we'll most likely see obviously Hunter, obviously
Yep.
Hunter. Um, I guess Zoo I think is a
Yep.
possibility because it's cheap to build, proven effective. And I think some tempo rogues.
We should probably do like like broad definitions lang of each of these decks in case the terms aren't familiar.
Right. Okay. Well, I just switched over into the hunter, the actual lists,
Oh,
so
okay.
so
Cool.
people can see
Yeah.
it already. So what I have up here is I just picked out a couple of decks. On the left is a limited hunter list, which is very loosely based on the Colento deck or Sunshine or Life Coach or whatever.
Okay. Okay.
Um, so it's there. Do you have it on your screen on your second monitor?
It's not coming up yet.
All right. Okay. No
I think
worries.
the stream is a little bit delayed sa akin eh.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
But okay, so you've got the
yeah,
limited version of
I've got
Colento.
the limited
Okay.
version of
Okay.
Colento. So
Okay.
this is something that we're expecting to see, and I guess for those who haven't really faced this much, right, or haven't fought against this much, um, like how does this deck work? I'm not a, how does it tick? What's the strategy and how do you drive this thing?
Well, I think broadly, the 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 reason why this deck is so powerful is because it's got two things, no? It's got an answer to everything, and it's got an engine to draw into those answers. So that combination is really powerful in this game, no? Because there's only 30 cards in your deck,
Mm-mm.
and theoretically, no matter what your opponent is playing, if there's an answer for that somewhere in your deck, and you have a way to get to it very fast, there should be no way for you to lose the game. So ganun, no? That's kind of the reason broadly why this thing is so
Why it's been
powerful.
so effective? So you
Right, right.
mentioned two things, right? You mentioned it has an answer for everything, and you also mentioned that there's ways to get into it. So for the guys who are thinking of trying this deck, when we say it's an answer for everything,
Mhm.
it's you have Hunter's Mark, which turns
Right,
whatever it is into something that
right.
can die to a boar, and the
Yes.
boar, that's
Yep.
just it. You have a deadly shot, which is obviously hard removal, random, but it's hard removal.
Right.
Um, and you also have kill command, and the reason why kill command counts as a pretty effective solution, especially in limited,
Hmm.
is for some reason a lot of people play smaller stuff, right? In limited, is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. Because most of the really big stuff in limited, they tend to have not so great consequences to them.
Yeah.
Say the Venture
So
Co mercenaries or what else is bad? Corehound's not great, but it's
no.
mostly because it can get hit by a kill command.
Yeah. So
Uh,
so a lot of the stuff there that we expect to see are they're about 5 health on average. I mean, we're talking about Yetis,
yeah.
Drakes. What's that?
What else is there?
What's that guy that draws a card? Something auctioneer.
Gajestan?
Gajestan auctioneer. Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
he's a four
Yep.
four. He's rare. He dies. So, So kill command, if you were to use it as removal, is yeah, it's pretty
Pretty
effective,
effective.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the removal part. What about the draw engine?
Well, the draw engine is essentially just a combination of two cards. No?
Mm-hmm.
So it's Unleash the Hounds and Starving Buzzard. Now, the really interesting thing about this particular version of this deck is that you don't actually always have to have Unleash the Hounds in order to get some kind of card advantage. Now, so having
Hmm.
the Buzzard on its own,
Mm-hmm.
because practically all of your other minions are beasts as well. All of
That's
them
true.
will trigger the buzzard ability, where when they enter into play, the buzzard will draw a card for you.
Okay.
So sometimes you'll see these these plays where the you know the hunter player doesn't even really have the unleash the hounds yet, so he'll open with a starving buzzard, and then he'll play one of the small minions first. No, so he'll play like a stone tusk boar,
Yeah.
followed by maybe a
Timberwolf,
timber wolf,
maybe.
and
Yeah.
then because he's drawing those cards, he's actually finding answers. So he might actually top deck the unleash the hounds
Yeah.
because
That's right.
he began drawing towards it. No, I
Mm-mm.
mean theoretically, naman, if you draw far enough into your deck, you'll just find whatever you need. So
Eventually,
so
yeah.
that's kind of the way the deck works.
And that's
Um, yeah,
that's a good point actually. I mean, if we're talking about like driving tips, right? Driving tips of how to use this thing. Um, what some people will do is they will really hang on to the Unleash the Hounds and save it until they can get
right,
massive advantage on it, of it, right?
right,
But in this day and age of people who know that this combo exists, uh,
right.
you'll probably see 2 to 3 creatures on your opponent's board
If
tops.
that actually,
Yeah,
yeah,
so usually it's just two.
yep, mhm,
So that being said, if you're on say turn 6, you have 6 mana and you're able to draw 2 cards without having to use your Unleash the Hounds, I think you've kind of broken even already.
right,
Um,
exactly, yep,
so the tip there for you guys is you don't always have to use Unleash the Hounds with the Buzzard. If you can
yep,
play a couple of cheap creatures and get advantage that way, then cool. If not, just take a look at how many cards you have left in your library. Keep track if you've already used your tracking, if you've already used your flare, and you can already start counting uh,
mhm.
your chances of being able to draw into what you need. So,
There's
okay.
actually
Hmm.
something interesting about Flare pala.
Yeah.
Because of the limited environment, no, and we're kind of predicting that there will be other hunters
Mm-hmm.
in the tournament. So in other words, I'm we're expecting that the predominant matchup is going to be mirrors between Hunter and Hunter.
Yeah.
Flare is actually a really powerful card in this matchup, especially if they're the kind of if you're playing against a kind of Hunter that relies on the traps. Those kinds of hunters are getting kind of rare these days, but occasionally they'll still kind of, they'll still show up every now and then.
Yeah.
And the flare in that matchup is powerful enough that it can swing the entire game for you because they'll have invested their entire strategy into the fact that their explosive trap or their freezing
Mm.
trap is going to remove your creatures, but you have a way to get rid of
To
that,
get rid of it, right?
and you also draw a card out of it. So you've not only nullified their play, you've nullified their strategy, but you've
And you
also
got the
gotten a
free
tiny bit
cycle.
of card
Yeah.
advantage. Yeah, so it's really a powerful card in that particular matchup, but only if your opponent is playing
Only if you're is
traps.
playing traps. Okay.
Yeah,
Because at least in in the open side, there seemed to be a pattern where because before the whole Colento list came out, right? There was a life coach or Sunshine or
right.
whatever,
Yep.
which actually ran traps, and even before that, was the full-on aggressive one, which ran
At least two
at
explosive.
least 2 explosives. Yeah, usually one misdirect,
Yep.
sometimes a freezing, but you had at least 4 traps in there because it was carrying 2 goals.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so at least in the last week, people
Mhm.
seem to be gravitating more towards the non-trap, non-bow
Yeah.
version, which is
Yep.
Colento, which is why
Yep.
in this list there's only one flare. But for limited, I'm wondering if running 2 flares could be good again. I don't know. It's a
Mhm. Well,
little
yeah. There's actually two matchups. Well, actually maybe three. No, there's three matchups that I can immediately think of where you would want to hold on to your flare instead of just using it on turn one. No, because
Okay.
there are times when a hunter won't have any other place to make on